I don't hear the kirtan. Haribol. Who's in charge there with the Hare Krishna Africa?
Hare Krishna.
You want some kirtan before we start?
Okay, Maharaj.
I'm just looking here to find some.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning. You want some kirtan before we start?
Okay, Maharaj.
I'm just looking here to find some.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning. You want some kirtan before we start? Oh, you're just playing over again and again, you know. I'm just looking here to find.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning. You want some kirtan before we start? Okay, here we go. I'm doing it. You want some kirtan?
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradha Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
All right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my respectful obeisances of gracious Prabhupada.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavati
Shivadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. Okay, yesterday we heard a lot about Maharaj Pariksit and Kali. And special stress was on cow protection, especially because Kali was killing a cow. That was like his first activity. Bringing in the age of Kali, which is where cow killing now is just considered necessary by many people. Even doctors telling people you have to eat beef. We haven't got to chapter 18 yet. We're on chapter 17, verse 43 and 44. Haribol? Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. So I asked everyone to read this purport over yesterday. I hope you did. It's quite a big one. 43 and 44, chapter 17, punishment and reward of Kali. So hopefully we learned a lot about, culture and proper king. Proper king will immediately act to stop sinful people, but then he'll also, if somebody's surrendering and begging for mercy, he'll help them. Sa esha etart yadasya asanam parti vochitam pitamaheno panyastam ragyar anyam vivikshata aste duna sarajarshi koravendra shiolasam gajavaye mahabhagas Chakravarti Brihajtravaha. The most fortunate Emperor Parikshit was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhisthira when he desired to retire to the forest. He is now ruling the world with great success. Duty has been glorified by the deeds of the kings of the Kuru dynasty. So they know his history. Purport. Now this one's a lot. The prolonged sacrificial ceremonies undertaken by the sages of Naimisharanya were begun shortly after the demise of Maharaj Parikshit. The sacrifice was to continue for 1,000 years. And it is understood that at the beginning, some of the contemporaries of Baladev, the elder brother of Lord Krishna, also visited the sacrificial place. According to some authorities, the present tense is also used to indicate the nearest margin of time from the past. In that sense, the present tense is applied to the reign of Maharaj Parikshit here. For continuous fact, also present tense can be used. The principles of Maharaj Parikshit can be still continued. The human society can still be improved if there is determination by the authorities. We can still purge out from the state all the activities of immorality introduced by the personality of Kali. If we are determined to take action like Maharaj Parikshit, he allotted some place for Kali, but in fact, Kali could not find such places in the world at all because Maharaj Parikshit was strictly vigilant to see that there were no places for gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. Now, we don't have power, of course, for the whole planet, but we have to carefully supervise, make sure that in all our temples and all our communities that none of these things are going on. Then we can have a society that flourishes and attracts people because there will be love and peace and, all the things that everybody wants. If we allow, if we're okay, well, it's okay, this person's not following the principles, but he gives some money or things like that, then we're gonna never make any real progress. can't tolerate within society people that are not following these things. Modern administrators want to banish corruption from the state, but fools that they are, they do not know how to do it. They want to issue licenses for gambling houses. They want to issue licenses for gambling houses, prostitution, whiskey houses, so many things. And they do it, and they get money. Wine, brothels, prostitution, hotels, and cinema houses. And they allow falsity in all dealings, even their own. And at the same time, they want to drive out corruption from the state. It's always interesting that Prabhupada puts a cinema house in right with the whiskey shops and gambling brothels, because the cinema is practically only promoting sex and intoxication and violence, especially Indian cinema. They want the kingdom of God without God consciousness. How can it be possible to adjust two contradictory matters? If we want to drive out corruption from the state, we must first of all organize society to accept principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. To make the condition favorable, we must close all places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and falsity. These are some of the practical lessons from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Quite clear there, isn't it? Step by step, first within our own society, we have to be very, very careful. The leaders have to make sure everybody's chanting 16 rounds and following the principles. That's the main business. When we're all doing that, management will follow Prabhupada. If we have a very, we need good management, but the management has to be spiritual also, not just paying the bills. Spiritual comes first. Text 45. Itam bhutanu bhavoyam abhimanyu stuto nripa yasya palayata chonim yuyam satraya dikshita. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, is so experienced that by dint of his expert administration and patronage, it is impossible for you to perform sacrifices. This purport. The Brahmanas and sannyasis are expert in spiritual advancement in society, whereas Kshatriyas and administrators are expert in material peace and prosperity in human society. All of them are the pillars of all happiness. Therefore, they are meant for full cooperation for human welfare. Maharaj Parikshit was experienced enough to drive away Kali from his field of activities and thereby make the state receptive to spiritual enlightenment. If the common people are not receptive, it is very difficult to impress upon them the necessity of spiritual enlightenment. Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, the basic principles of religion, prepare the ground for the reception of advancement in spiritual knowledge. And Maharaj Parikshit made this favorable condition possible. Thus, the rishis of Naimisharanya were able to perform the sacrifices for 1,000 years. In other words, without state support, no doctrines of philosophy or religious principles can progressively advance. There should be complete cooperation between the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas for this common good. Even up to Maharaj Ashoka, the same spirit was prevailing. Lord Buddha was sufficiently supported by King Ashoka, and thus his particular cult of knowledge was spread all over the world. So that's historical. Ashoka was a big king in India, and he took up Buddhism. He said the kings were quite disgusted with all the fighting that was going on. There was a lot of fighting going on amongst the kings. And Buddhism was peaceful, so because the king supported it, the emperor, it spread all over. So it's a grassroots, we call it. And Prabhupada said, if enough people were spreading this movement, it's not easy to convert to even approach the government. But gradually, if there's more and more people that are spiritually conscious, chanting the holy names and reading Bhagavad Gita and following the regular principles, then Krishna will arrange and somebody will be attracted to come in. Krishna will send better kings that support, because many places governments are against, any kind of religion. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, 17th chapter, punishment and the reward in Kali Yuga. Now, would anybody like to make a comment about that chapter? What do you remember? What did you learn?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. On the chapters we've just read, especially in the last purport, Srila Prabhupada made two very important points. One is that it requires the principles of religion for peaceful society, peaceful development. And you did mention that this has to start from our temples, our society has to do this. And we see and find that in our system, we have so much of challenges, even in keeping up these principles of religion, which are basics. And that Srila Prabhupada's 4 regulative principles are based on these 4 principles of religion. So my first question is, in a situation where one has to lead and then he has followers and they're not willing to follow strictly these principles of religion, what should be the mode? Should we leave and just walk away? Should we try to force the people to follow? Like Parikshit has to Kali surrenders submissively to Maharaj Parikshit, but in this case, people are very they're lacking in humility, so they don't want to submit even when they don't have the qualities. So how do we deal with this? That's my first question, Maharaj.
Okay, I'm not sure I can follow everything, but we want to, somehow inspire people to follow. If our leaders are following strictly and are happy, that will inspire. But what we need to do, the first step is to spread the whole chanting of the holy name as much as possible. Because by chanting the holy name, people get purified and then they can follow. So our, we don't want to, we can't just go around killing people that are driving people out of the country. But within our intimate community, especially if we have an ashram, we have to be sure that whoever is staying in that ashram is strictly following. And if someone can't strictly following, they can't live in the ashram. It has to be clear that that's a rule. Everybody has rules here in America. There's a sign outside the park in every country I've been. If there's a nice park, no dogs, no this, no drinking, no fireworks, no bicycles, no motorbikes, so many things. They have rules, dress codes and behavior codes and everything. So we have to make sure that our members, somebody's going to get initiated if they are strictly following. But we don't want to reject people that aren't. We want to bring them up. So if our temple is a very pure atmosphere, then when people come, they will get elevated. And the more we educate people, the more we spread the holy name, the more we spread prasadam. We can get people to give up their sinful activity. The basic thing is there. Purity is the force. All right?
Right, Maharaj. Maharaj, let me a little bit follow up to that question. We have an experience, I don't want to mention names, but we have a situation where the temple president, he claims that his wife is not following, so he sent the wife away. And there was a whole lot of counter approach from other devotees that whatever the situation, he shouldn't send the wife away. But the complaint of the husband is that he is the temple president and his wife is not following, so he sent her away. So in such a situation, what should the president do if the wife is actually not following? And then he's trying to keep the sanity of the temple. So should the husband resign from the position of the temple, or is justified? Because we have an experience like that recently, and then the temple president wasn't excused because he's based on this reason.
Well, I'd have to know more about the overall case before I could. Certainly, there's no hard and fast rule. It's not, it wouldn't be a common thing, So I'd like to discuss it later, but in this class, it's too hard to get into all the details of it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It could, it could be, it could not be. It just depends on many, many factors. And all these kind of questions are like that. There's no exact hard and fast rule, even in the legal court system. They have to consider many factors about the person, the situation, the background of the person, the current mentality. There's so many things before they sentence somebody, at least in some countries. All right?
All right. Thank you, Maharaj.
It's quite an interesting question. I wish somebody would have, nobody ever mentioned it. What country was that in?
It was in Nigeria here.
Which temple?
It was in Enoch, actually. The temple president claims his wife wasn't following, so he sent her away. And
Yeah, okay. Let me talk to you after the class.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay, so let's carry on.
Madhvan
So
Prabhu is
we see how Prickett was very quick to act when he sees, especially someone killing a cow. So, of course, we can't, there was an incident once in New Zealand. There was a group of devotees who were not part of ISKCON. They had joined, of course, and then they had a lot of complaints about ISKCON. And one of their main complaints was that our book distribution was too aggressive and was turning people against us. So they had some, and of course they didn't shave their head and they didn't dress like the women, and many things. So they had a house, and then there was an explosion in their house. And it turned out they were trying to make a bomb. You know, now this is how crazy things can get. They were trying to make a bomb to blow up the slaughterhouse, you know, where they were killing the cows, to stop the cow slaughter. But they were saying that our book distribution was too violent. It was disturbing people. So, you know, it came in the newspaper, Hare Krishna's, you know, house explodes and they're making a bomb. So then the ISKCON people had to retaliate to say that these people are not part of ISKCON. You know, things can get really crazy.
Oh, you want to ask a question? You raise your hand.
Yes. Okay. I want to ask a question. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Yes. From the last purport that we went through, it was stated that without state support, no doctrines of philosophy or religious principles can progressively advance. So, in which way are we getting state support for this our Hare Krishna movement, either internationally or locally, or and if not, how do you get state support?
Well, we're not getting very much actual support. You know, that where the government is promoting it. But we do have many countries where their legal policy at least allows us to function. And they do support us if there's, you know, if somebody's making trouble, somebody's attacking. Legally, we have some support. That's about all that we can say at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
India, to some extent, it's, you know, they help us set up Food for Life and they give the rice and stuff, but it's not so much. But whenever we open a temple, government people come, local government people, even Mr. Modi comes to the temple, you know. So that's support. It's not like they're funding everything and they're making the schools teach. But although there are some places where Bhagavad Gita is like part of the education system. So, but gradually, you know, as we carry on and get more and more members and they see more and more that it's good, because most governments want, they want to stop the violent crime. They want to stop, you know, drug addiction and all these things. And they see that Hare Krishna is helping to do that. Then they start to support in different ways. All right.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
It's not supported like, you know, where there was a king in India. He was the one who stole all the books when the Goswamis were transporting the books to Bengal. And then after he met Srinivasacharya, he became a devotee. And he made it mandatory in his kingdom, that people had to chant and people had to follow principles. And he built so many temples, and, so that we don't have yet as far as I know, anywhere in the world. But we can work at it, can pray for it.
We will try, Maharaj. We will try.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
He's a big coward and just begs for mercy. Not ready to fight against a real king. And he's dressed up like a king, but and punishing the cow for whatever reason, I don't know why. But this is the nature of the bullies. We have a lot of people like that in this world. Okay, chapter 18, Maharaj Bricket cursed by a Brahmin boy. So another interesting and fascinating event. Sutuvacha, Yovoi Dronyascha Viplusto, Namatur Udare Mrita, Anugrahad Bhagavata, Krishna Syadbhuta Karmana. Now, we are a little pressed for time, so I'm not going to read the Sanskrit every time. Due to the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Bricket, though struck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned. So I think we know that. Ashwatthama, even after he was, released by the Pandavas and he was humiliated, and he still had the ability to throw that Brahmastra weapon. So he tried to kill the child. The Brahmastra is so powerful, but it can be focused. So his mother was praying, save the child, even if I die. So there's different versions, but somehow Krishna entered the womb and protected the child, or he was burned up, but he gave him a new body back. And Parikshit saw Krishna then when he was still in the womb, and then saw it. That's why he's called Parikshit. That means the inquirer. He was always looking for Krishna. The sages of Naimisharanya become struck with wonder after hearing about the wonderful administration of Maharaj Parikshit, especially in reference to his punishing the personality of Kali and making him completely unable to do any harm within the kingdom. Sutta Goswami was equally anxious to describe Maharaj Parikshit's wonderful birth and death. And this verse was stated by Sutta Goswami to increase the interest of the sages of Naimisharanya. Now, this Naimisharanya, that's where Balaram came and killed Maharshan Sutta and then established his son. And then he killed the big demon that was disturbing the yagi all the time. Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to the snake bird, which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahmin boy. Purport. The self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called a Narayana Parayana. Such a person is never afraid of any place or person, not even death. For him, nothing is as important as the Supreme Lord, and thus he gives equal importance to heaven and hell. He knows well that both heaven and hell are creations of the Lord, and similarly, that life and death are different conditions of existence created by the Lord. But in all conditions, in all circumstances, he considers remembrance of Narayana essential. The Narayana Parayana practices this constantly. Cricket was such a pure devotee, he was wrongfully accused by an inexperienced son of a Brahmin who was under the influence of Kali, and Maharaj Cricket took this curse to be sent by Narayan. He knew that Narayan had saved him when he was burned in the womb of his mother, and that is, if he were to be killed by a snake bite, would also take place by the will of the Lord. The devotee never goes against the will of the Lord. Anything sent by God is a blessing for the devotee. Therefore, Maharaj Cricket was neither afraid nor bewildered by such things. That is a sign of the pure devotee of the Lord. Has anybody ever heard of a snake bird? Haribol?
Yes, my Lord.
You ever heard of a snake bird? Except here?
There are some ancient African stories, but not very clear now. I remembered while I was a young boy, my grandfather, whom I lived with, told some stories. That was a long time back before I even knew anything about Bhakti or devotional service. But I can't quite remember the story very well. Since I read this in the Bhagavatam, I've been trying to recollect that story, but I couldn't just remember. And my grandfather is late, so but I remember they said some stories, something close to that. I can't quite remember the story accurately.
Well, there's descriptions of this bird as breathing fire. You know, it's got a body like a snake. Very powerful, breathing fire. He burned up Mars. So that's like a dragon, you know, in the stories from Europe of the dragons. The flying snake, kind of, China has dragons and they breathe fire. And so that's what it is. So there was such a thing. Utsrija, no, I'm not going to read. When we read it, it's very nice to read the Sanskrit, but sometimes time constraints. After leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple of to the son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami. Thus, he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead. And at last, he gave up his material body on the bank of the Ganges. Report. The word Ajita is significant here. The personality of Godhead, Krishna, is known as Ajita, or unconquerable, and he is so in every respect. No one can know his actual position. He is unconquerable by knowledge also. We have heard about his Dhamma, or place, eternal Goloka Vrindavan, but there are many scholars who interpret this abode of different ways. But by the grace of the spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami, unto whom the king gave himself up as the most humble disciple, one is able to understand the actual position of the Lord, his eternal abode and his transcendental paraphernalia. In that Dhamma, or abode, knowing the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental method by which one can approach that transcendental Dhamma, the Lord was confident about his ultimate destination, and by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body, without any difficulty of attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Param Drishtva Nivartate. 259. One can give up all material attachment when one is able to see the param, or the superior quality of things. From the Bhagavad Gita, we understand the quality of the Lord's energy that is superior to the material energy, and by the grace of the bona fide spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything of the superior energy of the Lord, by which the Lord manifests his eternal name, qualities, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Unless one thoroughly understands the superior or eternal energy of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy. However, one may theoretically speculate on the true nature of the absolute truth. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit was able to receive the mercy of such a personality as Sukadeva Goswami, and thus he was able to know the actual position of the unconquerable Lord. That is very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literatures, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of the liberated devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. So this is another one. Just like Krishna raised Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna was bewildered supposedly, and that made the whole, stage for Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So he made this whole arrangement that Parikshit would get cursed and then take shelter and then hear the Bhagavatam. So therefore we have the Bhagavatam. That's all Krishna arranged for it to be spoken twice. Because he was very young, and he had the power. He could have counteracted the curse, but he didn't. He wasn't interested to do that. He took it as the will of the Lord. This is so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions, even at the last moment of their lives. Report. The highest perfection of life is attained by remembering the transcendental nature of the Lord. At the last moment of one's life, this perfection of life is possible for one who has learned the actual transcendental nature of the Lord from the Vedic hymns sung by the liberated soul like Sukadeva Goswami, or someone in that line of disciplic succession. There is no gain in hearing the Vedic hymns from some mental speculator. When the same is heard from the actual self-realized soul and is properly understood by service and submission, everything becomes transparently clear. Thus, a submissive disciple is able to live transcendentally and continue to the end of life. By scientific adoption, one is able to remember the Lord even at the end of life, when the power of remembrance is slackened due to derangement of bodily membranes. For the common man, it is very difficult to remember things as they are at the time of death. But by the grace of the Lord and his bona fide devotees, the spiritual masters, one can get this opportunity without difficulty. And it is done as it was done in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. So he's another one. Of course, he was the king of the emperor of the world, and so popular. The enemies would come and pay their taxes. But he gave it all up in a minute. There's sometimes stories in different versions that say he tried everything to save his life, but it didn't work. But it's not true. He could have engaged other Brahmanas to counteract the curse, but he wasn't interested to do that. He took it as a mercy of the Lord. As long as the great powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor, there's no chance that Kali will flourish. As we've already explained, the personality of Kali had entered the jurisdiction of this earth long ago, and he was looking for an opportunity to spread his influence all over the world. But he could not do so satisfactorily due to the presence of Maharaj Parikshit. That is the way of good government. The disturbing elements like the personality of Kali will always try to extend their nefarious activities. But it is a duty of the able state to check them by all means. Although Maharaj Parikshit allotted places for the personality of Kali, at the same time he gave no chance for the citizens to be swayed by the personality of Kali. Now, modern governments, like was mentioned a lot in the previous chapter, they are licensing all these places of sinful activities rather than trying to stop the sinful activities. And they're encouraging it, mainly because they're taxed very heavily. So I don't know if it's anymore, but like in Accra Airport, when you come out, there's just all big billboards for casinos. No. Welcome to Accra. Please come and gamble. Some countries have casinos in the airport. Casino means also prostitution and intoxication. So the good king won't protect the citizens. That means they have to provide proper spiritual education for people and to stop these sinful things. But in Kali Yuga, they tried in America to make a beer and whiskey illegal, and then the illegal places became more and more people were doing it. Now in America, they even made marijuana illegal in many states. It's sold everywhere. Okay, next verse. The very day and moment the personality of Godhead, Krishna, left the earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world. Personality of Godhead and his holy name qualities were all identical. Personality of Kali was not able to enter the jurisdiction of the earth due to the presence of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, if there's an arrangement for constant chanting of the holy names, qualities, etc., of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no chance at all for the personality of Kali to enter. That is the technique of driving away the personality of Kali from the world. In modernized human society, there are great advancements of material science, and they have invented the radio to distribute sound in the air. So instead of vibrating some nuisance sound for sense enjoyment, if the state arranges to distribute transcendental sound by resounding the holy name, fame, and activities of the Lord, as they are authoritatively given in Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, then a favorable condition will be created and the principles of religion will be reestablished in the world. And thus the executive heads who are anxious to drive away corruption from the world will be successful. Nothing is bad if properly used for the service of the Lord. There are things that can't be used. The Sahajas, they can just offer anything to Krishna and it's purified. Can offer their illicit sex or intoxication, but that is not correct. Maharaj Pickett was a realist, like the bee, who accepts only the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in the age of Kali, auspicious acts produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to get effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. Okay, that's an important point. Kali Yuga is praised by sages even though it's full of all these anomalies. But because in Kali Yuga, it's very easy for spiritual life. The yagyas or the intense meditation or the super elaborate temple worship that's required in other ages can't be done, by us in Kali Yuga. But chanting the holy name, anyone can do. And also, like here it says, auspicious acts produce good effects immediately. That means even if you just think about doing something good, you'll get some benefit. And if you think enough about something, you're going to do it. So even if we're thinking, I want to go on Harinam, I want to do this or that, that's good. But inauspicious acts, you have to actually do it to get the sinful reaction. But that doesn't mean it's okay to just go on thinking about sinful acts, because if we do that, whatever you think about, eventually you're going to do it. So that's a special mercy of Kali. So the sages glorify Kali. Purport: this age of Kali is called a fallen age. In this fallen age, because the living beings are in an awkward position, the Lord has given some special facilities. So by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of sinful act until it's actually performed. That's what I was saying. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of that act. On the contrary, until in other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim, get karmic reaction. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking them. So that's a special feature. So even if we can't do, we want to do so many things for Krishna, but if we're thinking of doing it, and eventually we'll be able to do it, but we'll get some benefit just by thinking about it. Krishna will be pleased. Maharaj Pariksit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Kali, because the king did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. The king protected the subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali. At the same time, he gave full facility to the personality of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Godhead are present, there's a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaj Pariksit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. So that's the kind of government help we're hoping for. But, some governments, we can get permission anyway, to do Rath Yatra parades in many countries and have big festivals. But we have to take permission, but the government will allow the police come to, to protect us and help us. If they would actually sponsor, they have so much money to do so many things, they would make it part of the education system that everybody has to learn Sanskrit or learn Bhagavad Gita slokas. That can be done. The governments can do that, and it will happen if we just carry on strictly preaching, cooperate amongst ourselves. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas, it's said by discourse on Lord Krishna's activities, one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that by recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali, and Maharaj Pariksit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the personality of Kali, true to the Vaishnava cult. Now, there's a verse mentioned here that says it's from the end of the Bhagavatam. It says there's one great thing, Kali's so bad. But there's one great advantage. Who knows that verse? Anybody know? It's a very simple one, and I'd like to see everybody memorize it. It says, Kaler dosha nide rajan asti eka mahadgunan.
Kitanad eva Krishnasya Sangat Param Bhajet.
Oh, you know it. Okay, say it again.
Kala dosha nidirajan astihi eke mahaguna kitanad eva Sangat Param Bhajet.
Translation.
I don't know it of the literally, but the translation says that kalau doda, kalau dosha ni doda. In this age of Kali, the age of Kali is a question of pop. Asti yekum aguna. There is one good quality. You can have ever Krishna said, Krishna, the holy name, avoids liberation. Quickly go to the verse.
All right. That's a special good quality. And those who somehow can take advantage of it, but also we have to realize what a great mercy this is and take it. Don't take it for granted that, we just like to sing and dance. We're chanting the holy name, and it's not only saving us from sinful reactions, that you can get by many things, but the purpose of chanting the holy name is to get love of God in. And Prabhupada is giving us all facility to do that. So we'll read on. Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but those who were self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care of the foolish, careless persons. The intelligent person knows that Krishna is more powerful than the Kali, and by chanting we can keep Kali out. So we don't want to leave the door open so the Kali can come in. The door to our temples, and the door to our houses, and the door to our communities, the door to our hearts. Keep your door locked. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare. Krishna can come in anyway, but those who are not devotees of the Lord are careless and unintelligent. Unless one is thoroughly intelligent, cannot be a devotee of the Lord. Those who are not devotees of the Lord fall prey to the actions of Kali. It will not be possible to bring about a saner condition in society unless we are prepared to accept the modes of action adopted by Maharaj Parikshit, propagation of the devotional service of the Lord to the common man. Upavarnitam etadvat punyam parikshitam maya vasudeva katopetam akyanam yad aprichyata. O sages, as you did ask me, now I've described almost everything regarding the narration about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaj Parikshit. Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of the activities of the Lord, and the activities of the Lord are performed in relation with the devotees of the Lord. Therefore, the history of the devotees is not different from the history of the Lord's activities. The devotee of the Lord regards both the activities of the Lord and those of the pure devotees on an equal level, for they are all transcendental. Therefore, we recommend that everybody read the Prabhupada Lilamrita. And now there's more and more books about the life of Srila Prabhupada and his wonderful activities. And all the great devotees, we have the Acharyas, and even our Satyaraj Prabhu, I just met him. He's a very prolific writer. He just published a book about Jaipataka Swami, and he told me he made one about He made Bhakti Swami one previously. He made one about Gopal Krishna Goswami. He said it's very important to have books about the Prabhupada's disciples even. So when we talk about the glories of devotees, and not just these really great, big time devotees, but any devotee, it's purifying. But especially, like Prabhupada especially. He also made a book about all the activities of ISKCON in New York City in the last 50 years, 800-page book. So someone should write one about all the preaching in Africa. And all the great devotees who came there. So many of you are still there. Those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead who acts wonderfully. Someone else can read this purport. Better get more interactive here.
The sister. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Go ahead.
The systematic hearing of the transcendental activities, qualities, and names of Lord Sri Krishna pushes one towards eternal life. Systematic hearing means knowing him gradually in truth and fact. And this knowing him in truth and fact means attaining eternal life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, such transcendental glorified activities of Lord Sri Krishna are the prescribed remedy for counteracting the process of birth, death, old age, and disease, which are considered to be material awards for the conditioned living being. The culmination of such a perfectional stage of life is the goal of human life and the attainment of transcendental bliss.
That's the whole purport.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, then who will read the next one? Verse and purport. Go around.
Madhava Prabhu, you can read. Okay, Tamara Krishna Prabhu, can you read?
Yes. When we hear about this, when we hear about the transcendental qualities and activities of the personality of God,
Translation first.
okay.
Read the translation. Read the translation first.
Okay. The good sage says it. Oh, great Sutta Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar of metta being like us. Purpose. When we hear about the transcendental qualities and activities of the personality of Godhead, we may always remember that we may remember what has been spoken by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Has act even when he acts in human society. We are transcendental, for they are all but they are all acquainted by the spiritual energy of the Lord, which is distinguished from the material energy, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Such as are called Divyam. This means that he does not act or like his death, like an ordinary living being under the custody of material energy, nor his body material or challengeable like that of ordinary living being. And one who understands this fact, either from the Lord or from the authorized source, is not reborn after leaving the present material body. Such an enlightened soul is admitting into the spiritual realm of the Lord and ages. In the transcendental loving service of the Lord, therefore, the more we hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord as they are stated in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the more we can know about the transcendental nature, and that makes definite progress on the path of back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So what's Bhagavad Gita 4:9?
Yamma kama chamedi yam ivan yobeti.
Right.
Mighty man.
Janmashtami.
One who knows the transcendental nature of my act. Upon leaving this body.
My birth and my activities will not have to take birth again. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. Just have to know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality. All right, now here's some interesting information about yagyas and so on and so forth. Who can read next?
Rasavan Prabhu, can you read? Rasavan Prabhu.
Madhuran, I'm driving, so that's why I couldn't read. I'm so sorry.
Okay, Madhavan Prabhu, you can go ahead. Rasavan Prabhu, can you read? You are muted. Please unmute.
Okay. Is it okay?
Yes, okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. Text 12. We have just begun the performance of this fruitive activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Govinda, which you are distributing. Purpose. The sacrificial fire kindled by the sages of Namisaranya was certainly full of smoke and doubt because of so many flaws. The first flaw is that there is an acute scarcity of expert brahmanas able to carry out such performances successfully in this age of Kali. Any discrepancy in such sacrifices spoil the whole show, and the result is uncertain, like agricultural enterprises. The good result of tilling the paddy field depends on prudential rain, and therefore the result is uncertain. Similarly, performance of any kind of sacrifice in this age of Kali is also uncertain. Unscrupulous, greedy brahmanas of the age of Kali induce the innocent public to such uncertain sacrificial shows without disclosing the scriptural injunctions that in the age of Kali there is no fruitful sacrificial performance, but the sacrifice of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Sutta Goswami was narrating the transcendental activities of the Lord before the congregation of sages, and they were factually perceiving the results of hearing these transcendental activities. One can feel practically as one can feel the result of eating food. Spiritual realization acts in this way. The sages of the Misaranya were practically the sages of the Namisaranya were practically sufferers from the smoke of a sacrificial fire and were doubtful about the results. But by hearing from the realized person like Sutta Goswami, they were fully satisfied. In the Brahma Vaivata Purana, Vishnu tells Shiva that in the age of Kali, men full of anxieties of various kinds can vainly labor in fruitive activity and philosophical speculations. But when they are engaged in devotional service, the result is sure and certain, and there is no loss of energy. In other words, nothing performed by spiritual realization or for material benefit can be successful without the devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So this is like pointing out that these yagyas are very difficult, and if they're not done perfectly, they can even have an opposite effect. But the chanting of the holy name is not like that. So that's why another reason it's recommended. Of course, if we chant offensively, then the effect will not come quickly or not come for a very long time. So there were many defects in their activities, and the mantras for these yagyas have to be chanted perfectly with all the meter and accents and everything. Otherwise, can have a very bad effect. But we see that chanting Hare Krishna can be done musically, it can be done silently, it can be done with a Yoruba accent or an Igbo accent, it could become with a Russian accent or Spanish accent. And still, Krishna knows someone's trying to chant his name and he gives full credit. So this is just more reason to understand. And we do other yagyas for show, but for spiritual benefit, it's the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Other yagyas Prabhupada gave us, we do something, it's for show to help us fix the mind, something to remember, attracts the crowd. But if there's no chanting of the Maha Mantra, then no matter how elaborate of a yagya we do, it won't have any spiritual effect. There's no expert Brahmins. They would have many pure Brahmins would have to chant the mantras, and then there would be another mantra, another like a judge. And if they chanted wrong, he would tell them. I heard it was not too long. It was I heard when a young devotee, but somebody tried to do some big yagya there in South India, and they had so many brahmanas, and they had the referee, and when he pointed out some mistake, they all just started arguing, with all the different groups, and depending on where they're from, they had different ideas how to pronounce things. So the Maha Mantra, everyone can get together. People from 100 or 200 countries all at once can come together and chant the holy name, and it's ecstatic. Number 13, the value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot be compared even with the value of attaining the heavenly planets or liberation from matter, what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. So Lord Chaitanya stressed that again and again. Sadhu Sangha, Sharva Sasta Koi. Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. That even a moment's association, Sadhu Sangha, even 1/11 of a second, That's supposed to be how long it takes to blink. So that will perfect your life because it starts something, it plants a seed. So when we go out and we're meeting people and they're hearing the holy name, they're looking at a book, it may be only a couple minutes, but it's planting a seed, it's getting them started. So devotees try to do that as much as possible. How many people are we meeting? When there are some similar points, it is possible to compare one thing to another. One cannot compare the association of a pure devotee to anything material. Men who are addicted to material happiness aspire to reach the heavenly planets like the moon, Venus, and Indraloka. And those who are advanced in material philosophical speculation aspire after liberation from material bondage. You can see why people want that, because, you know, just the body is so full of pain, the mind, other people are bothering us. There's, you know, natural disasters, there's wars. So that promise of just nothingness, being free, it sounds like a relief, actually. Therefore, it's similar to just getting intoxicated till someone passes out. It doesn't really stop the pain. When they wake up, they just have more problems. So when they do so much tapasya to try to get liberated, you know, free from all pain or whatever, but it just turns out things get worse. Can't stay there. When one becomes frustrated with all kinds of material advancement, he desires the opposite, liberation, which is called apunar bhava, or no rebirth. But the pure devotees of the Lord aspire after neither the happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom nor liberation from material bondage. In other words, for the pure devotees of the Lord, the material pleasures obtained in the heavenly planets are like the phantasmagoria. And because devotees are already liberated from all material conceptions of pleasure and distress, they are factually liberated even in the material world. This means that the pure devotees of the Lord are engaged in transcendental existence, namely in the loving service of the Lord, both in the material world and in the spiritual world. As a government servant is always the same, either in office or at home or in any other place. So a devotee has nothing to do with anything material, for he is exclusively engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Since he has nothing to do with anything material, what pleasure can he derive from material benedictions like kingship or other overlordships, which are finished quickly with the end of the body? Devotional service is eternal and has no end because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of a pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there is no comparison between the two. Sutta Goswami was a pure devotee of the Lord, and thus for the rishis in Naimisharanya, the value of his association was unique, incomparable to the value of any material assets. In the material world, association with the gross materialist is veritably condemned. The materialist is the one who's called Yoshitsumi. Professional speaker and a materially absorbed audience cannot derive real benefit from such discourses. Professional speakers make a show of Bhagavad Sapta for the sake of family maintenance, and the materially disposed audience hears such discourses of Bhagavad Sapta for some material benefit, namely religiosity, wealth, gratification of the senses, and liberation. There's some very famous Bhagavad Sapta speakers, and they charge a very big fee to do their thing, and they get hundreds of thousands of people. And they come every night to hear Bhagavatam for a few hours for 1 week. And they think that, by that they've perfected and fulfilled all spiritual obligations. So they can speak very emotionally and very beautifully, and they have nice bands with them and nice show, but it's not changing anyone's heart. Prabhupada is a real speaker of the Bhagavatam, making people become devotees by 25-minute discourse in one class would drive a whole temple full of devotees to go out on Sankirtan. Bhagavatam discourses are not purified. Such Bhagavatam are not purified from the contamination of material quality. But the discourses between the saints of Shaimasharnya and Sutta Goswami are on the transcendental level. There is no motive for material gain. In such discourses, unlimited transcendental pleasure is relished by both the audience and the speaker. Therefore, they can continue the topics for many thousands of years. Bhagavad Saptas are held for 7 days only. And after finishing the show, both the audience and the speaker become engaged in material activities as usual. They do so because the speaker is not a Bhagavad Pradhana and the audience is not Shushushatam, as explained above. Now, if we go to Vrindavan, you see signboards everywhere from Bhagavad Katha by somebody with a big title. Most of them are Mayavadi. They're getting very, very rich by their Bhagavad Katha, called all over Delhi and everywhere. That is not the highest thing. Okay, who would like to read the next one? Make it quick, somebody. How about Techno Spark, B-A-P? Strange names. Are those initiated names? Huh? Techno Spark and Infinix. Kamal Krishna Das can read. Did he read already? Do any of you have the book, or you just have to look at the screen? Number 16. Come on. Okay, I'll read it. Please describe these topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Bricket, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, king of birds. These topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. There is some controversy amongst the students on the path of liberation. Such transcendental students are known as impersonalists and devotees. The devotee of the Lord worships the transcendental form of the Lord, whereas the impersonalist meditates upon the glaring effulgence of the bodily rays of the Lord, known as Brahma Jyoti. In this verse, it is said that Maharaj Bricket attained the lotus feet of the Lord by instructions and knowledge delivered by the son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was also an impersonalist in the beginning, as he himself is admitted in the Bhagavatam 219. But later on, he was attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and thus became a devotee. Such devotees with perfect knowledge are called Mahabhagavat, or first-class devotees. There are three classes of devotees: Prakrita, Madhyam, and Mahabhagavat. Prakriti, or third-class devotees, are temple worshippers without specific knowledge of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Now, in some places, Prabhupada speaks really strongly about that. That they're worshiping the deity, but they don't respect the devotees. And it's a very low class. Often they think that they're the real devotees. And you don't think things like those devotees who are in the temple and doing all this service and work, they're just faking it to find a place to live. And I don't need to associate with them because I'm so much more advanced. But the fact is that if one thinks he's advanced, he's not advanced. The real Mahabhagavat considers himself to be the most fallen. The Madhyam, the second class devotee, knows well the Lord's devotees, the neophytes, and the non-devotees. We're trying to be that. And that means we have to discriminate between the Lord himself and then the Lord's devotees. So we worship the Lord, we serve the devotees, and we serve with the devotees. For the neophytes, the innocent people, we try to help them. And the non-devotees, meaning that those who are against Krishna, we avoid them. The Mahabhagavat sees everything in relation with the Lord, and the Lord present in everyone's relation. The Mahabhagavat, therefore, does not make any distinction, particularly between a devotee and a non-devotee. Maharaj Bricket was such a Mahabhagavat because he was initiated by the Mahabhagavat devotee, Sukadeva Goswami. He was equally kind even to the personality of Kali, and what to speak of others. So there are many instances in the transcendental histories of the world of an impersonalist who has later become a devotee, but a devotee has never become an impersonalist. This very fact proves that on the transcendental steps, the step occupied by the devotee is higher than the step occupied by the impersonalist. There's also said in 12.5, the person stuck in the impersonal step undergo many sufferings more than achievements of reality. Therefore, the knowledge imparted by Sukadeva unto Maharaj Parikshit helped him attain the service of the Lord. And at this stage of perfection is called Apavarga, or the perfect stage of liberation. Simple knowledge of liberation is material knowledge. Actual freedom from material bondage is called liberation. But attainment of the transcendental service of the Lord is called a perfect stage of liberation. Such a stage is attained by knowledge and renunciation, and we've already explained 1:2:12. As delivered by Sukadeva Goswami, results in the attainment of transcendental service to the Lord. Now that's mentioned everywhere. Bhagavad Gita also. When one gets knowledge of Krishna, then he will engage in devotional service without interruption. Tanna param punyam sambritartam akyanam adyadbhuta yoganishtam Yanantacharitopananam Parikshitam Bhagavat Viramamam. This please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, can we ask somebody, Salika, can you read the purport then? Since you seem to be on the ball.
What was spoken to Maharaj Parikshit and what is very dear to the pure devotee is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is mainly full of narrations of the activities of the Supreme Unlimited. And therefore, it is the science of Bhakti Yoga, or the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, it is para, or supreme, because although it is enriched with all knowledge and religion, it is specifically enriched with the devotional service of the Lord.
So, glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sutta said, "O God, although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great souls who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with great souls, such great souls, one can, without delay, cleanse himself of all disqualifications resulting from a lower birth." Because Sutta Goswami is the son of Ramaharshan Sutta, who was the son of, what was it, a Brahmin mother and a Kshatriya father, or vice mixed caste. Now, I don't know about Sutta Goswami. He's also mixed, but it's his grandfather that's mixed. So, but he is pure. The father was very learned and a disciple of Vasudev, but somehow or other he got puffed up by the position and fell back to the impure birth consciousness. So he failed to offer proper respect to Balaram. Because if one is sitting on the asan as the acharya of the yajna, he's not obliged to pay obeisances to all the others that come. They're offering obeisances to him because of the seat. But when the Supreme Lord came, he should pay obeisances, but because of his pride, he wasn't able to recognize Balaram. Purport. Quick, somebody.
I read now that Sutta Goswami did not take his birth in a Brahmana family. He was born in a family of mixed caste or an uncultured low family. But because of higher association like Sri Sukadev Goswami and the great Rishi, Nani Saraya, certainly the disqualification of inferior birth was washed out. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed this principle in pursuance of the Vedic usages. And by his transcendental association, he elevated many low-born, or those disqualified by birth or action, to the status of devotional service and established them in the position of acharyas or authorities. He clearly stated that any man, whatever he may be, whether a Brahmana or a Shudra, by birth, or a householder or mendicant, in the order of society, if he is conversant with the science of Krishna, he can be accepted as an acharya or guru, a spiritual master. Sutta Goswami learned the science of Krishna from great rishis and authorities like Sukadev Goswami yesterday. And he was so qualified that even the sages of Naimisarayan eagerly wanted to hear from him the science of Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he had the double association of great soul by hearing of Krishna. Transcendental science or the science of Krishna has to be learned from the authorities, and when one preaches the science, he becomes still more qualified. So Sutta Goswami had both the advantages, and thus, undoubtedly, he was completely free from all disqualifications of low birth and mental agonies. This verse definitely proves that Srila Sukadev Goswami did not refuse to teach Sutta Goswami about the transcendental science, nor did the sages of Naimisaraya refuses to hear lessons from him because of his inferior birth. This means that thousands of years ago, there was no bar to learning or preaching the transcendental science because of inferior birth. The rigidity of the so-called caste system in Hindu society became prominent within only 100 years or so, when the number of Vidya bandus or disqualified men in these families of higher caste increased. Lord Sri Chaitanya revived the original Vedic system, and he elevated Thakura Haridas to the position of Nama Acharya, or the authorities in preaching the glories of the holy name of the Lord. Although His Holiness Srila Haridas Thakur was pleased to appear in the family of Mohammedans. Such is the power of pure devotees of the Lord. The Ganges water is accepted as pure, and one can become purified after taking a bath in the waters of the Ganges. But as far as the great devotees of the Lord are concerned, they can purify a degraded soul even by being sinned by the lowborn. And what to speak of association of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to purify. So I take that again. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to purify the whole atmosphere of the polluted world by sending qualified preachers all over the world. And it remains with the Indians to take up this task scientifically and thus do the best kind of humanitarian work. The mental diseases of the present generations are more acute than bodily disease. It is quite fit and proper to take up the preaching of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world without delay. Mahatmanam Abhidanam also means dictionary of great devotees, or a book full of the words of great devotees. Such a dictionary of the word of great devotees, and those of the Lord are in the Vedas and allied literatures, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam.
So we can maybe slightly imagine what a great person, a devotee, Sutta Goswami had heard Sukadeva Goswami speaking for 7 days and nights and remembered everything. So he's no ordinary sage. So in the Bhagavatam, sometimes we're hearing directly from Sukadev, sometimes they're quoting long past, events. And sometimes we're hearing from Sutta, but he's reciting what he heard from Sutta. So birth is not important, it's the activities. So Ramaharshan, the father of Sutta, he had been put on that because he was so exalted, but by the arrangement of the Lord, somehow or other he, spaced out. When Balaram came and he didn't offer respect, therefore he had to be killed. Special mercy. And that, I hope everybody knows that pastime. It's in the Krishna book. Then the sages said, now Balaram, what are we supposed to do? Because, we had this yogi all arranged here now who killed him. And Balaram said, well, I could bring him back to life if you want. And they said, no, because you killed him. There must be a good reason for that. So then he said, okay, I can empower his son. And that's what they did. And then they said Balaram had to do some penance, to make up for killing a Brahmana. So they asked him to kill this Vaibhava demon that was always polluting all their yoga arena. Every time they tried to have a yoga, this demon would come and throw stool and urine and dead animals. Okay, we have time for a little review. If anybody, I'd like to hear, what anybody says and any little thing you remember or what caught your attention. I only have a few minutes because I have another class scheduled. So Jyoti Swara Prabhu, what did you pick up from this chapter so far?
Jyoti Swara Prabhu, please unmute. Jyoti Swara Prabhu.
You know how to unmute? You can unmute it. No, I know. You can mute it.
Can speak.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Can I read the translation?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the Unlimited, who has unlimitedly potency, the personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta, unlimited. Purport: the Dvijabandhu, or the less intelligent, unctuous man born of higher caste, put forward many arguments against the lower caste men becoming Brahmanas in this life. They argue that birth in a family of Shudras or less than Shudras is made possible by one's previous sinful acts, and that one therefore has to complete the term of the disadvantages due to the lower birth. And to answer these false logicians, Srimad Bhagavatam asserts that one who chants the holy name of the Lord under the direction of the pure devotee can at once get free from the disadvantages due to the lower caste birth. A pure devotee of the Lord does not commit any offenses while chanting the holy name of the Lord. There are 10 different offenses in the chanting the holy name of the Lord. To chant the holy name under the direction of a pure devotee is offenseless chanting. Offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord is transcendental, and therefore such chanting can at once purify one from the effect of all kinds of previous sins. This offenseless chanting indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and has thus surrendered unto the Lord. Transcendentally, the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical. Being absolute, the holy name of the Lord is powerful as the Lord. The Lord is the all-powerful personality of Godhead, and he is innumerable names which are all non-different from non-different from him, and are equally powerful also. In the last word of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that one who surrenders fully unto him is protected from all sins by the grace of the Lord. Since his name and he himself are identical, the holy name of the Lord can protect the devotee from all effect of the sins. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord can undoubtedly deliver one from the disadvantages of a lower caste birth. The Lord's unlimited power is extended on and on by the unlimited expansion of the devotees and incarnations. And thus, every devotee of the Lord and the incarnations also can be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to the lower birth cannot stand in the way. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
All right, so I have to leave. Thank you.
Thank you
Please,
very much, Maharaj.
everybody, take time during the week to go over these things, read the verses, take some notes, so you can share a little bit realizations when we start next Saturday. Thank you very much. Haribo.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for being with us. Please, all the
All right.
devotees kindly let us chant Hare Krishna loudly to appreciate Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare.
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Goodness, Kavicandra Swami Maharaj.
Jai.
Thank you, all the devotees. So we'll see all of us again next week Saturday.